Has anybody ever heard of the theory of duality or two gods within the Bible? Maybe it's a hard pill to swallow, but there is truth to that principle, there is truth to that thought, there is some essential part of understanding that we're missing out if you think about duality. If you think about duality, we think about things like Taoism, for example, where duality or non-duality is present. Because you got two becoming one and one splitting up in two. If you think about it in a biblical context, you might think about things like having Adam first, one, non-dual, and splitting up in two, duality. But duality going back to non-duality. Now for God, apparently it's the same thing. And this theory is based on the perception of Maron. So Maron said, look, if you look at the Old Testament, there is a God that is completely different and distinct of the God, the Father, that Christ is praying to, worshipping, connecting in the New Testament. So it's literally taking these two parts as two separates with two different deities and their impact, their influence, and how people got treated by that deity. So the crucial part to understand is remaining with the question, is the God of the Old Testament equal to the God of the New Testament? Is the God, aka the Father of Yeshua, the same God, the same Father, the same wholesome Father as the Hebrews were worshipping and following and deifying in the Old Testament? According to Maron, again, it wasn't. They're two separate entities. One is hateful, vengeful, bloodthirsty, and needs blood sacrifices. An evil, demonic deity that doesn't actually love or care or is compassionate, that only has selfish needs and desires and eventually leaves you with pain and destruction. So that sounds pretty demonic to me. That doesn't really sound as what Christ was actually talking about. Christ was talking about something completely different. And also the relationship, reflecting on it, is completely different in essence. And the core principles are also very different. If you just take the time to, to compare. Okay. So if you just think about it, everything that happened in the Old Testament seems to be very negative in essence, and everything that happens in the New Testament seems to be very positive. And what I mean positive is that the guidance and the fulfillment and the understanding and the connection seems to be on a higher level. So Old Testament connection with God is on the lowest vibration you can ever come to understand. And there are peak moments with specific type of people, but if you look at it in a general of a whole community, a tribe or tribes of people coming together and trying to connect and reach out to God, it doesn't seem to be that unless you follow strict rules and regulations, you're not going to be getting anything, and if you get something, you are lucky. And it seems to be more a mental thing at times. I see it more as there are moments that it is just very linear and you have this low energy God, this demonic deity, the evil one, as he is being called. And sometimes there is an interjection of the actual God, what we associate with when we're talking about Christ. And that presence interjects itself so that it can help from the shadows, help from the sideline, because it seems to be that when there is this negative ruling, people are under some type of control. But then because actual God doesn't want you to completely be wiped out, completely be destroyed, completely be disconnected, from time to time it has to show itself, it has to let you remember. And it seems to be the progress from people going more and more to the direction of the New Testament, that more and more that connection seems to be bigger, but only for a selective few. So it seems to be also a choice. And that is actually a very interesting principle. So to me, if I think about Marcion, I do think about that Marcion did make a very good point. And if you look at his biography, at his backstory, you know, he was as many are there a part of the Roman Catholic Institute, you know, and you have to representing accordingly. But then at a certain point, when you question, you challenge, you go astray, you do different things, or you have a different vision or, you know, understanding of biblical scripture, of how the world works, or the identity of God. And you know what happens is that goes against the principle of the church, and then they will treat you poorly, they will excommunicate you, they will just put you aside, and if it has to happen, they will even delete you. Just because he came up with a theory that didn't align with their agenda. And according to the stories, he also was striving to, in his position and representing the Roman Catholic Institute, trying to have relations with a virgin. And all these things went against the principle that is embedded also again in Paulinian theology. So every time any type of big institute gets challenged on their beliefs, their principles, their rules and regulations, and what is required from within and without the institute, it seems to be that people are being treated bad, poorly, and get deleted. It's literally like, you know, criminal organization, you know, it's like mob mentality. You know, you don't do what we say, then there are consequences. But I thought that the one that has the final word and say concerning us as spiritual beings in human existence is God, and not this institute that so-called represents it, because it seems to be again a disconnection. So why would you completely fully submit to that instead of to God? Doesn't make any sense. So that's why when I got the Evangelion of Christ and I started reading and I started understanding, you know, Marcion's perspective and how he saw scripture in general on a very base level, it reminded me of the Sumerian tablets and the texts that speak about having these two deities, these two gods, also a duality of two brothers. People would say biblical, you can say Cain and Abel, you can say Christ and Satan, you know, you can say God and the devil, you can even say Adam and Eve. It doesn't matter, but there is always this form of duality that represents itself through storytelling, through personalization characters in time and history, because it's like a cycle. And the thing is that if you look at it, it's very similar, because you've got one that wants to help us grow, help us develop, be there for us, love us, care over us, like we're like a pet, you know what I mean? Like we're the most beloved for them, like that. Yeah, like their creation, like what the relationship between man and dog, or relationship between man and a cat, or any type of animal you have a close relationship with, you want to nurture, take care of, cherish it, grow, progress, and develop. So you're aiding, and that's also the same relationship. You don't want to abandon. You want to be there. You want to do whatever you can. But then the other side is the flip side, is the dark side, is where you get used as a tool, you get exploited, and then you get destroyed if necessary. I mean, that's the whole light and darkness dynamics, and it seems to be present in anything in life. If it's an organization, if it's worldly experiences, if it's people, or if it's like invisible forces, you know, in spiritual realm. And that just makes you think. It doesn't matter how you look at it, but if you look at it, you're going to see parallels, you're going to see similarities, you're going to see things you're going to recognize, and you're going to sense it, feel it, and then you're going to think about it, and then you're going to do your research, and then see the similarities. I think it's just crucial to just come to understand that if you think about everything that has been written down, that has been shared accordingly to other types and tribes of people within similar areas and regions, there is always an influence that you have to keep in mind. So it doesn't matter if the theme changes, the story changes, the name changes. It's about the core teachings and the whole core essence in the story that we gotta try to understand and see in a modern context. So if you have these two deities that can put themselves out there as being supreme, and that we're on a very low level and they're on a very high level, of course it's going to make sense that we're going to look for guidance and need guidance, help, and do all these things like praying and calling out and shouting and trying to connect and wanting to intervene, because that is a higher power that we cannot understand. That's a higher power that goes beyond our understanding. But it seems to be something that has interest in us, whether it's good or bad. And that's something we're stuck in between. It's a war between these two sides. You know, if I just think about, my own discipleship, and I think about the time that there is this story that explicitly talks about the children of light fighting against the children of darkness in the end times. So the end times is just like an end of a cycle, a period in time of human existence, in general, where people that remain on the pathway, the light, being good, compassionate, kind-hearted, gentle, friendly, caring, nurturing, like all the things that what makes us feel good as children growing up, things that we crave, things that we need as humans. And then if you think about the opposite, the flip side, when people go astray, when people get disconnected from a lack of this experience, it's always negative. It's hate, resentment, destruction, spite, negativity, breaking down, self-destruction, and both have such an extreme ripple effect, after effect, that involves everything around you, around these people. You can't deny it. It's present. And if you want to distinguish it between light and darkness, children of light, children of darkness, children of God, children of Satan, then it's very clear what it's talking about if it talks about Scripture. And I'm talking about separate scrolls where these things are mentioned in such a way that gives you the opportunity to actually reflect and think about, okay, what side am I on? Am I gonna follow Satan in little, the evil one? Am I gonna be a part of the children of darkness? Am I gonna participate by these organizations, these companies, lifestyle, anything where we talk about the collective, where once you make that step, you become a part of it, you get sucked into it, and you completely turn into it. Think about it. The more you hang out with people that are negative, the more you will become like those people, equally being negative. The more you hang out with people that are positive, the more you become like those people, being positive. So it's either Enlil, Satan, or it's either Christ, Enki. And I'm using these examples just to give a broader understanding of where I'm coming from if it comes to core principle teachings and understanding our position in life and the universe. And that's what I'm trying to get at. So the decision is up to you. It's a personal choice, and it's something you have to think very closely about, because these forces, this duality in existence by itself has always been there. You always have darkness trying to completely consume light and turning in darkness, and you've got light that completely wants to take over darkness and transform it. So light transforming darkness is a positive progress that is essential in the universe, but darkness consuming light is very harmful and dangerous as in the sense of the end result. It's kind of like blocking the sun, and then the after effect it has on everything that lives life. So I'm gonna just end with a question for people that are watching and made it until this point. Do you believe sincerely, according to the theory I came up with right now, what I'm sharing with you, the duality of the two gods in the Bible, that the God of the Old Testament isn't equal to the God of the New Testament, and the focus should be on actually the teachings, the life, and understanding every message of Christ. So it's literally walking in the footprints, adopting, becoming, being as to fulfill something, instead of obeying and being distracted and worshipping and completely submitting and completely losing your identity, but not in a good way. Because instead of coming to and fulfilling, you're actually doing the total opposite. So do you believe that both these parts are two different progresses when people make a choice?